Hi class, welcome to week 3. For week 3, we're going to be looking at the income-consumption relationship, income-saving relationship, and the interest rate investment relationship. We're going to be looking at GDP, some various economic models. We're also going to be looking at different factors that move the economy to its equilibrium level of output and employment. In your content area, you have some resources, 3 different links that I think will be very helpful, 2 PowerPoint slides for chapter 11 and 12. Here's what's due this week. Discussion for week 3, which we'll go over, homework for week 3, and quiz number 1. Make sure that you start preparing for data exercise number 2. I know that a lot of you kind of struggle with data exercise number 1, and I think most of you struggle just to the fact of you didn't spend enough time on it. And that's where we need to really get your focus. We need to get you to focus on spending more time on your work and breaking down the number of resources. I think you'll find that very easy to do. And if you can do that, I think it'll help you expand on what you're looking at. Now let's look at the discussion. For the discussion, you're going to be reading these articles. You have 3 different articles to read, and you're going to answer all 3 questions. What's the paradox of the thrift? Is savings good or bad? Now think about that. Is savings good or bad for an economy? It's a very tricky question depending on the perspective you're looking at. Give an example of the paradox of the thrift. And what is the reverse paradox of the thrift? So in your discussion board, you need to make sure to have your first post by Thursday, have an APA formatted in-text citation and reference, and I would recommend putting in the actual subheadings 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think that'll make your life a lot easier, or 1, 2, 3, and I think it'll make it a lot easier with regard to when you're doing your analysis. Because when I grade your work, I can easily see what you're working on. Change this right here to of. Now let's go to chapter 11. The aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. In this model, it's basically the supply and demand model, but we're looking at the entire economy, not of individual markets. Let me get to some of the key components to aggregate demand, aggregate supply. The first one is the aggregate supply curve. The aggregate supply curve, you're going to have a short-run aggregate supply curve, okay? You're going to have a long-run aggregate supply curve, also known as LRAS. This will be our potential supply in our economy. This is our aggregate supply in our economy. The potential usually never changes. Now we're going to look at the aggregate demand curve. The aggregate demand curve is made up of these components: consumers, businesses, government, and net exports. Net exports is exports minus imports. There's many different reasons why the aggregate demand will change or will shift either to the right or to the left. Now, what we're looking at is, here is the current equilibrium where we are at right now, point E. Here is our potential right now. You'll notice that we're below our potential. This is called below full employment or a recessionary gap. When we're below full employment or we're in a recessionary gap, we have to do policies to stimulate our economy to get it back to full employment. These are how you're going to be looking at these models. The reason why the aggregate demand curve would shift, policies that will shift it: government spending, tax cuts, interest rate changes, consumer sentiment. All of those will influence how the government will spend money. When we look at these, you'll notice these factors will cause impacts on our economy. So now what I want you to do is I want you to make sure to review the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, look at the additional resources that I supplied, and let me know if you have any additional questions as I look forward to your effort this week.